Assalamu alaikum. Hey, and welcome to the Million Muslim Minds Transformation podcast. I'm your host, Abdul Shahid, the founder of the Muslim Life Coach Institute, lead coach and therapist, helping you to transform your life through the science of the Nafs. This podcast is for you if you are ready to up-level your life, get away from the fear and the anxiety and overwhelm, and create the most abundant life, beautiful relationships, and a life that you love. If you're ready for that, ready to create a legacy, let's do this. Bismillah. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. This is an episode all about negativity, and we want to flip it on its head. We want to actually dive into it a little bit. I want to talk about it and really get you prepared for the up and coming masterclass. I'm running, if you haven't heard already, I'm running a masterclass, Mind Health and Emotional Wealth Reboot. This is where we actually dive into what's happening inside of ourselves, looking at ourselves through the lens of the science of the Nafs, understanding what's creating the emotional turbulence, what's creating the behavioral challenges, what's creating all of those relationship challenges that we get into, and what we can do about it. So we're going to be diving into this on the 25th of July. It's a 3-day masterclass series. It's an immersion experience. If you want to join me, you want to run over to the Muslim Life Coach, the Muslim Life Coach.org/masterclass. Sign up for that now. Obviously, it's going to be mind-blowing. We want to actually create a sense of calm and ease and overcome the anxiety and the overwhelm and all of that stuff that we get ourselves into. And all of those things, they all come back to the subject of the podcast today, which is negative thinking. You see, most of what we struggle through in our lives, most of it, it's, we have the external and we have the internal. And many of you, I know you are always trying to change your situations. You're trying to deal with the relationship challenges you've got. You're trying to, maybe mediation, maybe talking to family and friends, and you're always trying to deal with those relationship challenges. But sometimes our relationships are actually fine, and where the problem is how we feel every single day. And when we wake up in the morning and we don't actually want to get out of bed, when we feel as though, we want to crawl out of our skin because of how we feel physically in our body, because of the stress that we find ourselves under. And all of that stuff, what it does is that it actually disrupts your life. And most people, most of my students, especially the people going through the Nafs Transformation program, they have been going through this like you and I, and many of us, we get stuck. At times things are great and at times things are not. But what we do is that we normalize it. And those experiences that we have, the waking up and being anxious, or, being afraid to go out into the world, being, so cautious about how we live and how we interact with people, it impacts our relationships. In the end, it impacts, even if the relationships are good, the people around us, they're impacted by our way of living, our way of thinking, the way that we are. And how you show up in your life totally determines how your relationships turn out. In fact, how you show up in your life totally determines how much success, physical health, in terms of, your business, your career, all of the opportunities that come your way, raising your family, raising your children, how much success and how much achievement we have is totally determined by the state of our mind. And so if you're forever in this state of incessantly trying to get out of the feeling that you're in, or get out of the situation that you find yourself in, and you feel as though the world is closing in on you, and there doesn't seem to be another way, sometimes what happens is that we get into that moment, we get into that feeling, and then we drop out of it, and then we're back to normal, and then we oscillate between the two. We're in and out, And the problem is we actually normalize it. We think that it's normal, and because it's been going on for so long, we think it's normal. The problem with this is that it actually impacts you in the long term, because the human body, the human mind, the soul, you have not been designed to be under a chronic state of stress, a chronic state of anxiety or fear or anger or sadness. We haven't been created to be in a continuous state of this. And so what that does is that it actually impacts us physically. It drains us of our energy. We're totally impacted. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because at the root cause of this is the thinking that we have. Now, the negative thinking that we find ourselves in sometimes, especially those of you who have done some sort of training in theology or psychology, like you often, after years of, studying and practicing your skill, like we get to a point where we think that nothing actually works because I've tried everything. And here's the thing. This is the difference between the science of the nafs and just about everything else. The science of the nafs, like, just so that you understand what this is, especially if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, the science of the nafs is a psychology model based on the Quran and Sunnah, and it's like it's not psychology through Freud or any other I want to say contemporary, because the psychology that we practice is really just like 150 or 180 years old. But the psychology through the Quran and the Sunnah, it was revealed with revelation. Like, it's through the Quran and Sunnah. The problem that many of us have had, and myself included, for many, many years, while I was searching and researching and studying, was that I never found the solution that, the solution to mental health or emotional health. The ability to thrive depended on your ability to maintain your state of mind and maintain your emotions. And when you're not able to maintain it because your environment triggers you, or your family trigger you, your kids trigger you, or just the society at large, having to interact with it on a day-to-day basis. Like, I know, because many of you, you struggle with this, right? And we go through these struggles, and we're always trying to find a solution. We go back to the Islamic studies. We go back to what we learned as youth, and we find that there's things missing. We go back to traditional education and psychology, and even if you've studied to PhD level psychology, you find that it's not always working. And here's the difference. The difference is that all of this education and all of these things, which are amazing, and they've been helping us, the human race, to actually get through these challenges to some degree, like, they're not based upon revelation. And the difference with it being based upon revelation is that it's the design of the designer. Like, the designer is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So when you understand yourself, and let's take it back to you and I, when you understand yourself through revelation, when you understand yourself through the Quran and Sunnah, and I'm not talking about fiqh issues or, how you do this or how you do that. I'm talking about understanding the human mind, understanding why you feel the way you feel, understanding why you behave the way you behave, why you can't stop being a certain way, why you can't change and make that change stick. When you want to understand that, if you can understand that by understanding how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed us, then you have like a far greater opportunity of success in making those changes happen. And let me tell you, negative thinking is at the core of much of what we struggle with, humanity. And as a result of it, we are fearful, we are anxious, we are overwhelmed, we are sad, we are in a state of turbulence, like constant highs and lows, because of the way we think and the way we feel. And so the greatest thing that any one of us could do is to actually figure out how to change that, how to manage that, how to control it, how to transform it. And that's exactly what I've spent my life doing, because simply put, like myself, I've struggled with this, incessantly throughout my whole life. And I can go back to as early as 7 and 8 years old, and I'm not that much older, but I can go back to as early as 7 and 8 years old, and I can tell you of moments where I was totally distraught emotionally, not knowing what it was that was going on, not knowing how to handle it, and I just shut down. At times you shut down, at times you explode, right? And the thing is, we carry this throughout our lives. Like, this is like a behavior that we learn as young children, and we carry that throughout our lives. And regardless of what model of psychology or what model of understanding or fiqh that you follow, from theology, like regardless of all of that, like it doesn't change the human factor. It doesn't change the way that the mind works. It does not change any of this stuff. This stuff is universally true, regardless of, age, gender, location, the times that we're in, regardless of any of that. It's the same. So look, the best way to understand yourself is always going to be through divine revelation. Why? And why? Because I've just explained it, right? Because Allah is the one that created us. So he knows how he created us. So if we can figure out how to understand ourselves the way that Allah has created us, how do we do that? Go back to Revelation. If we can figure that out, then we have the solution. And so the science of the Nafs is a psychology model. It's a human behavioral science, and it's actually how we work. And we learn this directly through revelation. We are not going to any third party. We're not going to any other modality or anything of the sort. Now, of course, there are similarities in the core fundamentals, because a human being doesn't change the way they work just because they have one set of beliefs or another. Like we all work the same. So of course we figured out throughout, if you collectively look at all of the different modalities of psychology, or you look at the different philosophies in the world, like throughout the ages, you find, it's almost like drip fed throughout all of them pieces of it. But if you want it holistically, like if you want the whole thing, we're going to find it in the Quran and Sunnah. And that's exactly what the science of the Nafs is. The science of the Nafs is a psychology model where we learn about how to understand ourselves, and we go beyond that because it's a behavioral science. We actually learn to make those changes happen. So look, my whole journey was an intense journey of searching. I spent my life searching for these, I spent my life trying to understand the human mind, the human being, what we feel, why we feel it. Many turbulent times, struggled with many things throughout my journey. And regardless of all of that, regardless of all of the things that I learned along the way, I picked up lots of little bandages, meaning lots of ways to help myself, mindfulness and different stuff. But that stuff, it didn't stick. And, if you are someone who's been doing it for a long time, you'll know that, it's hit and miss. It's hit and miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so the thing is, the best way to make it work is to not just keep on doing what doesn't work, but go to what does work. And that's exactly what the science of the Nafs is. So the way that we deal, and I come back to negativity because that's at the core of all of this. Your whole life experience, everything is being created in our lives through this. So to understand this and to be able to change this, effectively, we're going to thoughts, we're going to feelings, we're going to the way that we show up in the world, your behaviors, your habits, and all of those things. But all of those things are secondary. The foundation, your mind and the way the mind works, your thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, all of the feelings that we actively feel or we think we're not feeling, all of those things, they determine the way our lives turn up. They determine the way that we show up, whether we wake up anxious, whether we wake up happy. Like, it all determines that. And what I do in the Nafs Transformation project, the Nafs Transformation project is a project that, I've been working on for many, many years. And the fruits of that project is the transformation program that I take my students through at the moment, right? And these are people who are clinicians, they're trained therapists, they are from they have no idea of any psychology, they're just homeschooling mothers, or people like you and I, just average everyday people, and they're teachers, and you name it. Like, everyone comes from a different background. We have one thing in common: we're human beings. We have a mind, we have a heart, we have this the intellectual capacity that we have energy, we have the ability to actually think and breathe and live. And that's the common factor. So as I take any one of you living, breathing people through this journey, what happens is that you align yourself to, divine principles, divine truths. These principles, they're eternally true. So when you align yourself to that, then all of a sudden you find that the anxiety disappears. The anxiety disappears, or is that you totally get it under control, right? So it's like, you got two ends of it. You got one end of the spectrum where you learn to deal with it completely. Another end of the spectrum is that you totally manage yourself and you're able to actually function and do well, and you're happy in your life. You're able to relive a life with contentment and joy. Like, you want to bring joy back into your life. Most of us, when we're struggling with all of these negative thoughts, the negative experiences that come out of that, then it just totally sucks the joy out of life. And it sucks the joy and fun out of relationships. I mean, ask yourself, is your relationship fun, or is your relationship intense? Do the people around you feel like they have to be on edge around you, or do they feel as though they can have fun with you? Like, is there joy? And look, I speak from experience. The funny thing is, most people that have an interest in psychology, like myself, that go out and study and research and train and all those things, most of these people, and you'll know if you're one of them listening, like most of us, like, we struggled with our mind. And because we struggled with our mind, we didn't want to sit there and just sit with it. Many people just sit with it and they learn to live with it, and they just normalize it, right? And it impacts them physically. It impacts their physical health, right? Fibromyalgia and all of the other things that we experience, like physical pain, all of that, it impacts us mentally. Your mental state impacts us. Now, if you've trained like me, then most of us, we go looking and searching to find the solution. Why? Because we struggle and we don't want to sit with the struggle, right? So I understand totally, like, where you're coming from, what you're going through. When you're trying to do all of these things to control the situation just so that you can feel okay, like, it's not the solution. And it's just like all of those things that I picked up along the way, that, the skill sets, they helped to a degree, but real change at core level, changing yourself from the inside, like real change. And I'm not talking about chasing feelings and, like, doing wishful thinking or positive thinking. I'm talking about real change that actually comes out of your mind into your life, into your relationships, into your world, and you're able to flourish. You're able to build amazing relationships. You're able to live a joyful life. Like, to do that, like, you got to go back to the core, fix the misunderstandings that we have. And the reality is that they are misunderstandings. And a lot of times I hear people talking about how broken they are. And I want to tell you, you are not broken. You're not broken. You're not the table. You're not the chair. And you're certainly not a doormat. You're not broken. I don't know how you break a doormat. But anyway, like, you're not broken. This is an erroneous belief. This is a myth that is spread. And people, they use it like it's real. And the reality is, you're not broken. We've been misaligned to a truth a principle, a divine principle of healing and flourishing. Both. You can't have one and not the other. You need both. But we've been misaligned with both of them. And when you realign with them, then all of a sudden you find that everything starts to change. How you feel in your day-to-day life starts to change. You start to live a very deliberate life, and that changes your whole life. So I wanted to introduce you to this subject, but there's so much to talk about. Like I've given so many classes and lectures and workshops on this subject. But look, here's the thing. Like, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, there is, obviously a misalignment somewhere in your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be constantly struggling with this. You wouldn't be going, having the ups and downs. But in my search throughout my life, like, and I can tell you, I've searched and researched and studied for many, many years, more than 25 years. And in that period, what I have found, like over and over again, is that in the Quran and the Sunnah, and I'm not talking about traditional studies, I'm talking about laced throughout the Quran and the Sunnah, like, we have the answers. It's always been there. And the science of the nafs is effectively, you're thinking it's new to you because you're hearing about it new, and generally in our days it's like something it's totally new for everyone, because what we're used to is whatever is out there in the marketplace, whatever the mainstream health and mental health, the mainstream coaches and what they are doing. But what we do at the Muslim Life Coach Institute is not mainstream coaching, nor is it mainstream therapy or counseling. What we do is we work to realign every human being with divine principles. Those divine principles, they encompass not just your thinking, but it encompasses your behavior. It encompasses, changing behavior, growing, developing. It encompasses your relationships, flourishing, achieving like great things in your life. Like, it encompasses all of it. It's a complete human behavioral science based on the Quran and Sunnah. It encompasses your connection to Allah, because many of us, we struggle with that connection because of all the challenges we have in our lives, but it encompasses that. So when you learn how to understand yourself through the science of the nafs, you're going to find that your life changes forever. You're going to love your life. Like, I can't tell you how my students, my coaches and therapists, it is like, let me just be categorical. Like, we do, we're a Muslim Life Coach Institute. We practice the science of the nafs. This is, like a complete tarbiyah system. You have psychology, spirituality, and when I say spirituality, I mean how you connect to Allah, your relationship to Allah. Like, we have this, we have your behavior, we have all of the challenges that we face. And I get, you name it, whatever condition you think about that comes under the banner of psychology, like, yeah, of course, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a solution for all of it. Like, we deal with all of it. So the thing is, look, at the root cause of all of those things, whatever the case, like, you ask yourself this question: what's your challenge? And do you have negative thinking behind those challenges? Is there some negative thinking behind? And this is not about taking blame. I'm saying that, are there negative thoughts? If you were to write those thoughts down and, send them out in the post, like, would everyone receiving them think that these thoughts are negative? Because if the answer is yes, then you know that there's a causal factor there, and that's what we're going to be solving. So over the next few podcasts, I'm going to be introducing you to all of these subjects. I want you to really understand yourself, and I'm preparing you for when you join me in the up and coming Masterclass. The up and coming Masterclass on the 25th of July, the 25th to the Monday, the 25th of July, 26th and the 27th. Those 3 days, we're going to be immersing ourselves in the science, in understanding our mind health, in understanding our emotional health and wealth, how to flourish, in other words, not just how to get by. And I'm going to lay out the foundations of the Nafs Transformation program for you, so that you can actually see it. And really, what I want you to understand in all of that is that we're going to be doing all of that but we're going to connect it to your relationships, because your relationships, they're without a shadow of a doubt impacted by the way that you think and feel on a day-to-day basis. So anyway, folks, do you need to have a problem to do this? No, but you do need to have a life, meaning that you want to create the life that you want. If you want to create the life that you want and you've got obstacles, procrastination, maybe you're a bit, you're going into burnout or whatever your challenge is, these are just human challenges that we face. Like, we're going to be covering the foundation of all of that. Join me, go to themuslimlifecoach.org and sign up for the Masterclass. You're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. And look out for the next podcast, because I'm going to be really ramping up on the podcast, getting you ready for understanding and get you ready for creating the most amazing 2022, because you can't do that unless you work on you. So anyway, I'll leave you on that. Jazakumullah khair. Hey, if you're ready to actually take the steps to transform your life, I want to invite you to join me on the Nafs Life Transformation Coaching Program, where I help you to take the steps to making the transformation of your mind, your relationships, and your life. Just go over to themuslimlifecoach.org/live. That's muslimlifecoach.org/live.